Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over how to be successful in the Coalition event Family Business. So, let's get into it. Family Business is the new PvP Coalition event that was introduced in the Streets of New Capenna set, and unlike previous Achieving Perfection videos, I'm actually going to go ahead and cover all of the nodes in one video. The reason for this is that you basically want to run one of two decks, for the most part for both nodes, with minor changes for both of those decks. So if you take a quick look at the event itself, there are going to be two nodes, a top node and a bottom node. For the top node, you're going to be able to use white, blue, or black cards, right, from the Obscura. And in the bottom node, Cabaretti, you're going to be able to use white, red, and green. Not cards, planeswalkers, right? So that means that you can use a white planeswalker for both nodes. Or alternatively, you could use a blue planeswalker here or a green planeswalker there or what have you. But really, there's going to be one big thing to keep an eye out for, and therefore, because of that one thing, you're going to want to build accordingly. Now, the objectives for this event are pretty straightforward. On the top node, you need to gain 20 or more life, and you need to draw 10 or more cards in the fight. And then on the bottom node, you need to summon 15 or more creatures and deal 20 or more damage to a planeswalker during a turn. Now, the dealing 20 or more damage is going to be really easy because of the way that the event supports work. And then actually the summoning 15 or more creatures will also be pretty easy if you have some token generating cards because of, once again, how the support cards work. So on the top node, you're going to have a permanent support that says when a creature you control gets buffed or gains an evergreen, you're going to draw a card and then perform one of the following actions at random. And then on the bottom node, you're going to make it so that Alliance, so when a creature enters the battlefield, you're going to create a Celestia Citizen token, and then you're going to perform one of the bottom effects at random. Now, as for both of these supports, they're both going to really influence the objectives that you're trying to complete. But the kind of scary thing about both of these is that you can use a white planeswalker in both of these particular nodes. And Puzzle Master's Ajani over here is going to be the overwhelming favorite among players to use for both nodes. So really, this event is probably going to be a Puzzle Master's Ajani fest, where you're just going to go up against Puzzle Master Ajani after Puzzle Master Ajani. I really wouldn't be surprised if over half of your matches are going to be up against Puzzle Master's Ajani. And the more that this event runs, I wouldn't be surprised if that number goes up because of the way that Ajani's passive works. So really, the two ways that you're going to want to play this event is going to be one, you're going to want to use Ajani yourself, and you're going to want to use Ajani. And I'll be going over, don't worry, I'll be going over all the different cards and stuff, but you're either going to want to be going Ajani or some form of white planeswalker with Sigarda's Imprisonment, because you're going to want to be able to lock down your opponent's creature tokens, because it is going to be absolutely rampant in this event. Or you're going to want to be running a blue planeswalker, and you're going to want to have Swim with the Fishes so that you can lock your opponent down that way, right? So the Sigarda's Imprisonment is going to make it so a creature can't attack or block, and Swim with the Fishes. Sleep with the Fishes is going to make it so that a creature is permanently disabled, right? So for the top node, the objectives are going to be to gain the 20 or more life and draw 10 or more cards. For this one, I would strongly advise that you use Puzzle Master's Ajani. If you don't have Puzzle Master's Ajani, then you can try and tinker around with what you have. But the real key here, and what makes Ajani so great, is that you have the first ability that's going to make you gain life. You have Ajani's passive ability, which if you've taken damage is going to make you gain life. And then you've got this enlist 4 gems. They're going to create 4 Ajani's leadership tokens and give them lifelink. So you're going to want to pop that first ability as quickly as you can just to make sure that you've gained your 20 life. And then the rest of this is going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. Some cards to look out for if you're making Ajani are going to be Velomachus. Velomachus is going to be a really good card here that you're going to want to look out for. Velomachus is going to enable you to fetch a Sigarda's Imprisonment, and it will only need 1 mana in order to be able to cast. So that's going to very easily make it so that you can completely lock down your opponent's board and make it game over. Other cards you're going to want to keep an eye out for For this particular node, if we go to the top node over here, if you have them, right, apart from Velomachus, Teferi is going to be a great card in white to draw cards. That's going to be really good for you. Secret Rendezvous is a phenomenal card for this. It's going to draw 3 cards and give them mana, so that's another card that you're going to want to look out for. If you have the new card Rumor Gatherer with Ajani, this is absolutely busted. So this card is going to have Alliance, so whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to draw a card, and then if you have 3 or more creatures, it's going to gain mana. So that's going to draw you these 10 cards really quickly, because you're going to be playing passively 2 creatures every turn. That means you're going to be drawing 3 cards per turn, including the card that you draw to start your turn, and so you're really actually only going to need 3 turns to be able to complete that draw objective. And so if you pop these little tokens down, you'll be golden. Now, Rumor Gatherer is great, Sigarda's Imprisonment is great, Velomachus is great. There's other ways that you can work around things, but I would strongly advise you build a deck around that core and you play with Puzzle Master Ajani. So this deck that you see here on the screen is the deck that I am going to personally run on the top node. Because there's going to be an influx of Ajani, you are going to want some kind of World Wipe spell, so make sure that whatever color it is you're playing has access to World Wipe. The white version of World Wipe is Ondu Inversion. Granted, I'm saying the World Wipe in that it's going to destroy all creatures and all supports. That's important because Ajani's going to be spamming a bunch of supports on the battlefield, so it will otherwise be tricky to get rid of other really pesky things that come out, such as the Prismatic Bridge, or even something like Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. A few other things to look out for in your decks are things like Sigarda's Splendor, which are going to be really good. This is going to draw you a card every turn. It's also going to gain you life. You'll see that that's fantastic for completing both of these objectives right over here. And if you're not a player who has a super huge collection, fear not. You can go ahead and run something a little bit different. You'll see that I'm basically running the same core that I was talking about of Sigarda's Imprisonment with Rumor Gatherer and Secret Rendezvous here in this particular deck. You'll see some other parallels with Eiganjo, Emeria, and Teferi. However, this particular deck is also running the Valkyrie Harbinger because this card is just so absolutely ridiculous in that not only is it going to give you lifelink, which is going to help you gain that life, but it's going to be making 4/4 flying angel tokens every single turn. The one thing that you're really going to need to look out for on this top node is this whole when a creature you control gets buffed or gains an evergreen, draw a card and perform one of these effects over here. This bottom of this middle effect right here, right where your opponent loses X life, could be absolutely devastating because this is going to be really easy to trigger, especially because Puzzle Master's Ajani is going to make all of these little tokens that are going to be adding evergreens to your creatures. So Ajani not only matches all of the objectives, but the perma supports seem to be based on Ajani as well. I know that they're technically based on the new Elspeth, but let's face it, Ajani's way better for this. So it's basically like the node is made for Ajani to just go and raffle stomp. So I would definitely go with something like this. There is one thing that I do want to make sure that you're careful of, though, before you go into this event, and that is Armament Master. I know that a lot of people really like to play Armament Master with Puzzle Master's Ajani, but you don't actually want to do this for this particular node. This is the Armament Master, if you're wondering, because with the way that Leader works, Leader doesn't actually make it so that cards that have effects for creatures entering the battlefield will take place. So if you have an Armament Master out to boost all of your tokens, and you have a Rumor Gatherer will not actually, Alliance will not trigger because it won't count as a creature entering the battlefield. The creature just immediately gets exiled. It doesn't count as entering the battlefield. It should definitely count towards summon objectives, so for the bottom node, but I definitely still wouldn't recommend that because you aren't trying to kill your opponent more quickly. You're trying to make sure that you achieve the objectives. So going up against Ajani, you're going to have a really easy time with a deck like this because once you get your Sigarda's Imprisonments down, you just lock down your opponent's 3 creatures and you're golden. You might be wondering if there's a counter to that, so how do you defend yourself against that? And the best way to do that is twofold. One is you want to make sure that you have 4 creature slots in your deck. So you'll see for this Pauper deck here that I'm recommending, I should say Pauper Plus, I've got the Rumor Gatherer as creature slot 1. I have the Valkyrie Harbinger as creature slot 2, and then the created Vigilant Angel token is going to be creature slot 3, with finally Ajani's passive ability being creature slot 4. This will make it so that if your opponent is going to either use the Sigarda's Imprisonment strategy, or if they are going to use the Sleep with the Fishes strategy, you will have something to get around that. The other way that you can get around that is with undo inversion. If your opponent winds up locking down your board and you only have 3 creatures, you can of course wipe your own board to be able to start playing new creatures and start hitting your opponent again anew. So my recommendation for decks would be to go something like this deck right here that you see for the Pauper Plus if you don't have a more established collection. The real key is that you're running something like Rumor Gatherer and Sigarda's Imprisonment in the deck. Ignite the Beacon can be really nice because this is going to enable you to fetch either Teferi if you want Teferi for drawing the cards and getting mana, or you can use it to fetch yourself the Rumor Gatherer for, once again, the same general purpose of drawing cards and then giving them mana. So those are both going to be really good options. This deck is a very good deck. It is one of the decks that I would definitely recommend for that top node. My other recommendation for the top node, if you happen to have more cards in your collection, would be something more like this deck over here. You'll see that it's very similar. There's just a few tweaks to it. I've added the Prismatic Bridge because the more copies of Teferi and Velomachus that you're able to get down, the better, and the more quickly you're able to get them is also going to be better for you as well. You will see that this particular deck here that I'm showcasing only has what appears to be 1 and 2 creature slots, but the Prismatic Bridge can actually play a creature token, Asika, which is going to be creature slot 3 for me, and then, of course, Ajani's passive is going to be creature slot 4, with, of course, a board wipe spell being Undo Inversion. So for this one, you're going to want to make sure that you've got gem conversion down. The earlier you can get a Velomachus down, the better. Make sure that you're able to pull the Sigarda's Imprisonments as quickly as you can, and then lock down your opponent's board. The only reason you'd want to tweak this is if you see that you're going up against a Raw deck because your opponent is a massive bumhole who is deciding to run Wizard class, and, well, they suck for that. So I'm not saying that you're a bad person for running Wizard class, but I am saying that Wizard class definitely sucks to go up against. So Ajani Puzzle Masters is definitely the way to go for the top node. Now, there is one other strategy that you can go, right, for both of these nodes. I really quickly want to go over what that other strategy is. The other strategy core that you can go with is the Kasmina Enigma Sage sort of strategy, right, because Kasmina is blue and green, and so you'll be able to use Kasmina both on the top node and on the bottom node. You see that you can use a blue node, a blue walker, and a green walker. But running a blue-green walker is going to be really effective. It's going to have the same sort of idea of the Velomachus with Sigarda's Imprisonment sort of idea with the deck core here of Selendi Vision and Sleep with the Fishes. So Selendi Vision is going to enable you to fetch a specific spell from your library and put it in your hand. And Sleep with the Fishes is the spell that you're going to want to be selecting because this is going to lock down your opponent's board, and then they're not going to be able to do anything or kill you. Furthermore, Kasmina is going to pair really well with this because of the way that her second ability works. So it's going to copy a spell in your hand and give it full mana. So it's going to make it so that you can really quickly get multiple copies of Sleep with the Fishes, and then you can go ahead and lock down your opponent's board state a little bit more quickly. So this type of deck is very effective for both the top and the bottom. And for that matter, you can actually run this particular deck here on both the top and the bottom. You'll see that this deck has Nissa's Revelation, which almost entirely completes both of the objectives over here, given that you're going to draw 5 cards and gain 20 life. You just need to gain 20 life in a turn. So if you have the Origins card, Nissa's Revelation, you don't have Puzzle Masters Ajani, then going for green is definitely going to be a good option for you if you have a multicolored walker that fits in the white, blue, black strategy, because the Nissa's Revelation is going to basically complete both of these objectives for you pretty easily. Beyond that, for my own personal deck, you'll see that with green, I'm running the Great Aurora. You definitely want to make sure that you're running some kind of board wipe for this event because of all the Puzzle Master Ajanis you're going to be going up against. For this particular deck, I am running the engine of Phylath with the Prismatic Bridge so that I can just get as many Phylaths down as possible. Those are going to be summoning all the creatures in the world that I need for this bottom node. And then, of course, for the top node, it's just going to get me a whole bunch of little critters. You'll see that I'm following my same strategy of 4 creature slots, 1 for Phylath, 2 for the forest tokens it makes, 3 for the Prismatic Bridge being Asika, and 4 being Ziatora's Envoy. You can, of course, run something else other than Ziatora's Envoy, but I really like that this draws cards and gives it a ton of mana, so you can definitely use that to be really effective with this Researcher. You're going to be drawing a ton of cards, you're going to be giving them a ton of mana, and then the rest of your deck is going to support that really well by being incredibly deadly with Phylath, having a very good gem conversion with Eryximethus, along with even actually having a little bit of extra conversion from the Selendi Vision, and if Prismatic Bridge turns into Astika, you're going to actually be converting more gems with that as well. So you're going to have a really effective deck that you can use on both the top node and the bottom node with this particular Kasmina deck. Of course, I know I've got mythics, I've got masterpieces in here. You can tweak it to just make sure that you're running Sleep with the Fishes, Selendi Vision, and some other kind of token generator. If you're looking for other really good token generators that you can run for the Kasmina route and you don't have an extensive collection, you can run things like Hangerback Walker, which I understand is a mythic, and Thopter Spy Network, which once again I understand is a mythic. But they both come from Origins, so hopefully the bulk of you who are watching this video will have access to one of those two cards. They are both going to be able to create a ton of Thopter tokens, and that will definitely make the bottom objective really, really easy. So Kasmina is my other suggestion. For the bottom node of this particular event, the Cabaret Greetings, this is going to be a really dangerous node. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be really, really dangerous. So you're going to want to watch out for it. And this is namely because for this bottom node, you'll see that you need to summon 15 or more creatures and deal 20 or more damage during a turn. The 20 or more damage you're going to complete like incredibly easy. It's going to be no big deal. But the summoning 15 or more creatures is something you're going to want to watch out for. Namely because with the way that this Cabaret Greetings support is going to work, is every time a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to create one of these Celestia Citizen tokens. Now, I'm going to assume that this can only trigger once per turn, the whole alliance and then all of this other stuff. That's what I'm guessing this effect can trigger only once per turn on both of these being. Otherwise, you're going to get an infinite number of Celestia tokens the moment that you drop a creature. And I highly doubt that that's how it's going to work. So you create a creature and you get 2 creatures for every creature that you make. And then also you're going to be either dealing a bunch of damage to your opponent, gaining a bunch of life, or gaining a bunch of mana. That X is going to be the number of creatures you control, including their reinforcements, which is absolutely devastating given that for this particular objective, you need to be summoning 15 or more creatures. You're going to have a whole ton of creatures down, so you're going to be killing your opponent mighty quickly if you wind up getting unlucky and getting this deal X damage to your opponent's Planeswalker from Cabaret Greetings. So the way that I would work around that, once again, I would definitely run Puzzle Master Ajani. There's really no reason not to run Puzzle Master Ajani for this particular event. That's top node. I should be going to the bottom node. So for the bottom node of this one, you'll see that I've changed up my strategy a little bit. And so I'm running a very similar thing. I'm running the Velomachus Sigarda's Imprisonment. You could also, once again, run the Kasmina deck. And then with the Kasmina deck, just make sure that you're running Sleep with the Fishes and the Selendi Vision. But if you're running Ajani here, you'll see a lot of similar cards. You'll see the Sigarda Splendor is still here. Ondu Inversion, Prismatic Bridge, Teferi, Emeria, those are all still there. But there's a really, really subtle difference in that I've added Conqueror's Pledge. So this one can go ahead and make 18 tokens, which is going to be very valuable because that alone is going to be able to complete the summon 15 or more creatures. And so all you really need to do is have a Velomachus fetch the Conqueror's Pledge one turn, and then cast it the next turn with the kicker, and you will have completed your objective for Commander. And then with it making those 18 tokens, if you factor in that Ajani is going to be making 2 tokens per turn, that's going to be 20 damage total that you're going to be hitting your opponent for, and that's going to complete the Bounty Hunter objective as well. So the rest of the deck here is designed to give you mana and give you more consistency. Healer of the Pride is absolutely cracked. You don't need to use it in this deck. You can, of course, use the Alliance Critter or some other thing in the deck if you would like. I just have this thing in here because this is effectively infinite life and mana on your turns with Ajani. It's absolutely wild, especially with Conqueror's Pledge. So it's going to be a really, really good pairing. Sigarda's Imprisonment, I've already gone over. And then I'm personally running Halo Fountain in this one because Halo Fountain is going to be creating more of these Celestia Citizen tokens. Right, more of these Celestia Citizen tokens. And so not only is it going to be serving as a gem converter, but it's also actually going to go ahead and give me the other stuff that I need for my objectives. So if you wind up following this video pretty loosely or even like somewhat closely, I think that you'll have a pretty easy time with the event. I know that Ajani, Puzzle Master Ajani, is a bit of a pain point for a lot of newer players. So the real point of this video is to go over how to counter Puzzle Master's Ajani. If you're wondering if this particular video is overlooking other possible strategies, this particular strategy is going to be able to defeat everything in the game with the exception of Wizard class. And once again, if you're going up against a Brawl, you're going up against a Wizard class deck, just go ahead, run Kasmina or something blue, and if you have it, you run Test of Talents. If you don't have Test of Talents, then just stick with Ajani and hope you beat your opponent before they get their Wizard class down, because there really aren't good counters to Wizard class. That card needs a nerf in the worst possible way. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up Test of Talents really fast so you can see it in case you're not familiar with it, but it basically makes it so the spells don't happen. So if you have any questions about how to build your decks, by all means, go ahead, stop into my Discord. You can tag me, ask me questions. The rest of the community in there is really, really helpful, and so they will happily, I'm sure, answer many of your questions as well. If you're wondering really quickly about which decks I'm personally going to run with all of the things that I have showcased over here, I'm going to, of course, be tinkering around a little bit, but I'm actually personally going to run Kasmina on the bottom with this deck over here, and then on the top I am going to be running my Puzzle Masters Ajani deck that I showed you over here with Valomachus and Sigarda's Imprisonment. So the whole idea, lock down your opponent's board. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope this is helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next one.